Hi, I'm Colin.
And I'm Megan.
And this is
Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Time to Pet. 2020 really taught us the importance of having a close community and support group around us. We talked about that many times throughout the year. However, we've never really talked about what it's like to start one from scratch in your area. So today we have Alicia Obando on to talk about how she started and why she started a pet sitter support group in her area, what that's been like, how she operates it, the opportunities that it affords, and what to expect from the members. Let's get started.
My name is Alicia Obando, and my company is called Pitter Patter Parenting. I started it 5 years ago to basically meld together my two passions of working with families with children and working with pets. So I provide pet care, education, and support by doing private consultations and teaching classes, and also providing pet loss support and general pet care services to families to help everybody live safely together.
And we had you back on in episode 78 to talk all about keeping kids safe around dogs and recommendations. And that was a wonderful episode. It had a lot of information. And I know Megan and I took a lot away from that too, and implementing stuff with our kids as well. But today we're having you on to talk all about starting a pet sit network. And you've done that. You did that about a year and a half ago. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so it started in January 2019. I had belonged to another women in business networking group, and I belonged for 3 years, and we met every week, 7:30 in the morning. And, it was a lot of your typical, insurance and, bank people, financial advisors, and all different kinds of things. And I just felt like, I loved the idea of the meeting with other people and talking about business and helping each other and sending each other referrals, but it just wasn't my tribe. And I thought, I wish there was a group like this that had to do with pet care professionals. And so I basically just called around to a few that I knew and said, hey, what do you think about this? And they said, sure, I'd come. And so I started the Chicago Pet Care Professionals Collaborative, also known as CPCPC, because that's a lot of words. And basically, I started it so that we could all get together to share resources, to share support, and to share referrals with each other.
Yeah, it really sounds great. It sounds like something that a lot of us really need, especially during uncertain times. So, you said for pet professionals, who exactly is the group for?
Well, it started off being for any pet care services business owner. So I wanted it to be for dog walkers, pet sitters, dog trainers, dog groomers, people who don't have a brick and mortar, basically, who deliver services rather than like a retail. But it really is just dog walkers and pet sitters. We've never had any trainers or groomers join, although we do have 2 people who do training along with dog walking. But so, yeah, it's basically your pet care businesses.
Right. Those people who can sometimes feel most disconnected from the world around them and most isolated.
Right. And I'm a solopreneur, and I know several other pet care business owners that are solopreneurs, or that maybe they have 1 or 2 contracted helpers. And so, the idea that you don't have that think tank in the office where you get to bounce ideas off of people, or, you're just kind of alone with your thoughts. So the idea to be able to sit down with other people in the exact same boat as you and say, hey, this is a challenge I'm going through. What do you guys think? Are you also experiencing this? What have you tried that works or doesn't work? And also just to have the camaraderie, Yeah,
that camaraderie really is key. So you don't feel alone, and you can, as you said, bounce those ideas off of each other. Like, that is so powerful to have, especially people who are directly in and around what you're doing, and people who've been in there longer than you, and for shorter amounts of time too.
Right.
What was the pet business networking landscape like before you started this?
Well, there was I think one in particular, there was a lot of online ones. Like Kristen Morrison has a great Facebook community, and there is a woman here out of Chicago called Candace Dagnolo, and she runs a paid membership group called the Pet Boss Nation.
Right.
And so I joined her online community, just her free Facebook group. But that was very much geared at retailers. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, that's not really the same challenges that I face. So I really did look around when I first started, because I'm a big networker. Mm. I've just always done networking, no matter what job I've been in. It's something that I'm good at, that I enjoy doing. And so I looked for those opportunities when I started the business. And like I said, I just joined that women's one, but there wasn't really anything pet related that was along the same lines. I joined my chamber, but again, those chamber gatherings are not usually pet care folks.
Sure. Yeah, it's not to discount those other connections and those relationships that you're building. But if you're looking for more advice, experience directly to the questions and things that you're dealing with, those can be harder to find for those specifics.
And I've gotten more referrals in the year and a half from other pet care providers in this group than I ever did from the women's group in a year and a half. Because we all have clients. And I think that's the thing that pulls people in, is the idea of referrals. We all have clients that move out of our target area, or for some reason suddenly need a service that you don't provide. So to be able to send that person to someone else that you know and respect, because you've been part of a networking group with them, because I won't refer my clients who I really trust and know that they trust me, I won't refer them to somebody I don't know.
Right.
So this way you're building relationships with other pet care providers so you can refer to each other. I've gotten some great new clients through this group.
Now, is that an implicit or explicit expectation for referring to others when you join the group?
It's right there in basically the statement of what we're here for. We're here to provide resources, referrals, and support to each other. So we share resources as ideas, groups, whatever. We share the referrals, clients with each other. And then we share support, just being able to vent and talk and feel heard. So those are the three areas that our group really, really helps people with.
Yeah, well, and making those expectations known right from the get-go of this is share and be shared with kind of group. Again, this community over competition idea and mentality.
Right. And that's what I'm hoping brings a lot of people to the group, because everyone's looking for new clients, right?
Yeah.
So that's the hook that gets them in. Yeah.
Yeah. So, back in 2019, you've surveyed the landscape. You're dealing with all this stuff. You have this itch to get something started. Why did you decide it was you who were going to start this? What made you say, this is my thing?
Well, I'm definitely one of those people who, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I'm going to do it. So yeah, I'm kind of a group starter.
Okay.
I've started lots of, I'm the one who starts the film and food club. And, I now run the 2U Ladies virtual happy hour for all the little old ladies at my church. Oh. I host a Zoom happy hour for them every Friday at 6 p.m. because they're all stuck at home, quarantining and everything. So yeah, I'm just the kind of person who likes to start groups and socialize and network.
Yeah, well, and I know many people, though, are not very confident, or they have a lot of questions or concerns about starting groups, because I feel like there's maybe a lot tied into something like that. So what advice would you give to somebody for if they're not feeling confident enough that they're the one to start a group?
Well, anybody can start the group, in their own area. And really, you can make it whatever you want, because, in my group, I'm the coordinator. And so I set up our meetings and activities, but you can find other people to co-chair. You can, rotate it around to every month. Someone else is in charge of setting the meeting and doing the agenda or whatever. You can make it whatever you want. So I would say, don't be fearful. It's basically, if you can get together with a group of friends in a bar for happy hour, you can do a networking group.
Well, and you touched on there of just because you want to start it doesn't mean you have to be the one who does all of the things, right? You can still bring in help and delegate and ask for other people to be involved too, so that it's not just resting on your shoulders.
Exactly. Yeah.
So after a year and a half, I was curious, how many people do you have in your group?
Well, the number, because to join, I send them the template, like, thank you so much for your interest. This is who we are. And then there's like 5 or 6 questions, basically your name, your number, your email, the name of your business, your website, the services you offer, and your target area. And then that information goes in our database, which is on a Google Docs spreadsheet that everyone has access to. So if you're looking to refer to somebody because your client moved, you can look and see, do they, who has that service, who services that area, and then you can make referrals through that directory. And so you have to give that information. And then once I have it, then I put it there. I add you to the email list, and then you get emails, invitations. You do the only restriction, or not restriction, but the only thing you have to do to be a member is you have to attend a meeting at least once every 6 months. Because we had a lot of people who were interested and signed up, and I never heard from again. So when you ask how many, the database has about 40 or so people in it.
Sure.
But half of those people I never heard from again.
Okay.
So we have our core group that meets, and we were meeting once a month in a bar. But when COVID happened, we switched to Zoom, and we were meeting every Wednesday night on Zoom for the first couple of months. And then now we meet every other Wednesday as things have slowed down some.
Sure. No, that sounds really good. And yeah, you mentioned that it's maybe setting some of those expectations of when you start a group, you may have a big initial interest, but after a while it may shake down to these core people, these people who are really active and really engaged.
Right. And one of the things that, we're trying to let people know is we value your engagement. This group is nothing if nobody comes.
Right.
And so we have a Facebook group, and that's where a lot of the referrals happen. People will say, hey, I got a call for this dog, but I don't service that area. Does anybody want it? We get a lot of those in our Facebook group. But what was happening is a lot of people were going on there to take those clients, but weren't at all active members in the group. And so that's when we made the rule that you have to participate in, and that's not a big ask. No. Attend a meeting once every 6 months.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you are removed from the Facebook group. You still get invited to the meetings every time because we encourage you to come. But you don't get to benefit from all those referrals if you're not a participating member.
Yeah, it gets back to that purpose of the group was this
right.
give, share and be shared with. And if you're not sharing, well, that doesn't get reciprocated. You can't just sit there and lurk in the corners and steal the referrals and not share out.
And the other purpose of the group is to build relationships with each other so that when we're making a referral, we're referring to somebody that we know and have learned to trust and respect. So we're passing these people on to somebody we know. So if you're not coming to the meetings and we don't know who you are, you're maybe not the person we want to refer to,
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, it makes you very uneasy to refer a loved client out to somebody who you don't know. And so it really gives you a big peace of mind before you can do that. So you had talked about how you looked around and you just started to ask people if they would be interested in this kind of group. Walk us through how you started to communicate with this group to others and to other pet care providers in your area.
Well, there was only a handful of people I knew offhand. And then what I did was I would always see like business cards at the vet office or hanging up at the dog store, the pet store. And so I would reach out to some of them and say, hey, I've started this group, this is what we're doing. So I tried to go that route. I haven't done that in a while because what I have found is now we have so many that people are bringing in other people. So usually what happens now is a current member will email me and say, hey, I met this woman. Her name is Sheila, and she has a cat company, and she'd love to join our group. Here's her email address. And then, so it's good because this is somebody now who I already know has expressed interest. Right. And then I send her my template email that says, so glad that you're interested. Here's who we are. And again, just letting them know that we're just a group of pet care business owners who get together every other Wednesday night on Zoom, and we share resources, referrals, and support. We'd love to have you join us. And, if you could answer these few questions, I'll add you to the database, and then you'll start getting the invitations. And so that's usually how people are coming in.
Yeah. Well, it's nice once you have people who are in the group starting to refer other people to the group. It kind of builds that organic growth and bringing in more people. What has the response been like? People who have been attending for a year and a half, what do they say about the group that right now? Well,
it's a totally different animal who we are now versus who we were pre-COVID.
Sure.
Because pre-COVID, the first 6 months, it was just kind of, building up people and kind of, getting to know each other. But then I started having guest speakers at our monthly groups. So I had a lawyer come in and talk. I had a social media person come in and talk. So people, who would come in and talk specifically to our type of business. But then when COVID happened, the first couple of months, it was all about financial aid. So our meetings were all about, okay, who's going to go for the PPP? Who's going to go for the EIDL loan? Who has heard back from your bank? How much did you get? How did you do it? It was a lot of that, and our city and state had some programs as well. So it was a lot of sharing that information. And I was attending webinars like crazy. My chamber, another chamber I don't belong to, the group that I originally got a loan from, 5 years ago, they were all doing webinars on here's how you can get financing for your small business. And so then I would, take good notes, and then we'd have our meetings and I would share all that information. So trying to be that resource for the group on here's some financial resources for you. And then we were all just touching base. Like, did you get your loan yet? What have you heard from your bank? And I think that was so critical. And I've heard a lot of members say how important that was to be able to come here to our meetings and find out how to get help. Or, unemployment was a big one. We had some people who were not incorporated, who were self-employed. So that how to handle that whole self-employed unemployment was something that I think was challenging because it hasn't really been done before. So it was just great for people to be able to say, hey, I'm doing that too, or I've also had that problem. And then again, that just support piece of saying, I've lost all my clients. Oh my God, how are you eating? How are you doing this? Does anybody have any clue about, how to talk to your mortgage company about getting, just the how to take care of yourself piece, right, as well as the business. So I just think that it was so hugely important for all of us, including me, to have that support network, because sure, we're all going through COVID, but I don't really have any close friends who are small business owners. Right. Nobody in my family is a small business owner. None of my best friends are small business owners. So to be able to have a group who knows what you're going through was huge.
Relate those fears and have people be able to come alongside you and sympathize with you in those times where you're just very, it's all confusing.
Right.
There's so many things unknown and very, very much that similar of like, this is what I'm doing right now. Is anybody else trying this? How did, you mentioned like this loan, how on earth did you apply for this loan? Okay, let's sit down and let's work on this together and share how that went for each one of us. I could imagine that would just be such talk about lifting a weight off your shoulders of fears and insecurities and the unknowns, to have that group come alongside you during that time.
Right. Yeah. I think it was, thank God for this group, I think, for a lot of us, because we would have just been floundering alone through that whole mess.
Have you heard about Time to Pet? Dan from NYC Pooch has this to say.
Time to Bet has been a total game changer for us. It helped us streamline many aspects of our operation, from scheduling and communication to billing and customer management. We actually tested other pet sitting softwares in the past, but these other solutions were clunky and riddled with problems. Everything in Time to Pet has been so well thought out. It's intuitive, feature-rich, and it's always improving.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software for your business, give Time to Pet a try. As a listener of Pet Sitter Confessional, you'll get 50% off your first 3 months when you sign up at timetopet.com/confessional. What does the interactions look like outside the group between, they go and they leave the group? How has that impacted the friendships and those kind of relationships in your area?
Well, when we met in person, I felt like that was, and also we weren't dealing with COVID. It was a lot more social, because we met at the bar and we would chat with each other. And I always brought my little doggy to the bar who would hang out at our meetings. And we also just had there was a different feel to our meetings. Now with COVID, it's a lot more business oriented. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's a lot more, here's the problems we're having. How are we going to solve them? And yes, we can all have our beverages, I guess, on Zoom, but it's not the same. We're not imbibing together.
Right.
But one of the things that I've noticed that has happened during the last 6 months that wasn't happening before is a lot of newbies, people who are just now starting a pet care business. So I'm glad we're here for them, because like we were talking earlier, just being able to tell people, oh no, don't do that. That's not going to work. We tried that, and, don't spend your money on, print advertising, just things like that. Like there was a new person who joined, and came to her first meeting a couple of weeks ago. And we gave her some suggestions because she's like, I got everything set up. Now I'm just waiting for my first client. I need a client. Right. And so we gave her some suggestions. And I said, go to Nextdoor. Go on there and just say who you are and what you do, whatever. And then she posted in the Facebook group, oh my God, I joined Nextdoor like you said, and I got my first client. So I love that. Like when there's new people and they get all this resources and information from all of us, people have been doing it for a little while, and they find it helpful. And, that's what I love the most, is being able to really feel like we're lifting people up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the questions I had about the group, for those new people is, have you thought about having a mentorship program for those new kind of pet sitters moving forward?
I hadn't thought about that, but that would be a great idea. I could definitely ask the members if they'd be interested in doing that. I am trying not right now to not put too much work on anybody else, just because everyone is so freaked out about just getting their business back to normal. Mm-hmm. There's been a decrease in attendance, I think, because of that as well. Like people are just trying to stay afloat, Mm-hmm. But there is one event that I have planned that I'm very excited about. So during all the, the civil unrest and the push to learn how to be more anti-racist personally and in our businesses, which is something I've really tried to spend some time on myself. There is a wonderful group here in Chicago called My Block, My Hood, My City. And they work on anti-racist things around the city, but especially with youth. And I saw in a chamber newsletter that they were looking for businesses who would host youth to show them what it's like to work in your industry.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, wouldn't that be fun? So I brought it up to the group. Several people jumped on it. And now we are hosting in October a group of like a dozen junior high and high schoolers that are African-American who are coming with their advisors from this organization. And we are going to do presentations on what it is to be a dog walker, a pet sitter, and we're providing dinner. And I think it's just going to be a wonderful event for us to showcase to the youth, hey, this is a viable career option.
Right.
Which I think it's a wonderful career option if you do have limited resources, So I think it's perfect for a group like this. But also just to, for us to be able to give back to the community. And one of the hooks I've given to the people to participate is, this is a great PR for you. You're going to be able to post on your Facebook page that you're doing this. Maybe take a photo. We'll see what kind of photos we can get. We can put a press release out that we're doing it as a, networking group. So it's a win-win-win situation. So I'm really glad people have stepped up and said that they want to be involved.
Yeah, no, that's huge. You can talk about community involvement at that point, and especially highlighting the pet sitting industry, which is probably not the typical industry or businesses that apply for those kind of things.
Right. I'm sure they've been to a lot of banks, insurance companies,
Right.
This is how you work a Xerox machine,
Right.
We're much more fun than that.
Right. Well, yeah. And just showing, helping elevate everybody through that process. It's educating, new people coming in and going, hey, if this is something that is absolutely viable, look at all these businesses around you that are kind of invisible and behind the scenes that you might not even know are there. And, giving you guys exposure to the community and getting better connected through that. That's a wonderful opportunity. And just one of those things that comes up of like, oh, it was just this little line in the newsletter, and
right.
Like those things can come and go, and you may never see it. So that's the power of a group like this, being able to bring those kind of resources and opportunities to everybody.
Right, and that's what I see as my role. Is I'm always on the lookout for things that can help us, individually or collectively, and then bringing them to the group. Here's a great article I saw about how to get new clients, or here's a wonderful webinar that's coming up, or that kind of thing, and posting it in our Facebook group. Obviously I'm not the only one who does that. Everybody in the group does that as well. And it's just such a great resource for all of us.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to share and help.
Yeah, because they know in turn it does help you, when you're sharing that kind of stuff, because then, hey, I saw this opportunity, let's all get involved. And that does make it better for the group.
Right. And like you said, it elevates our whole industry when we do that.
It does. It shines a light on that, which is something that, again, not a lot of people think being a pet sitter, dog walker is a viable career option, but it totally is. And it just takes being exposed to that for a little bit to understand the ins and outs of that, and to hear some of the local success stories too. I'm very excited about that for you.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that it helps people realize that it is a professional job,
Right.
that and to elevate it as a professional career option, that people are, get training, that people have certifications, that people, know how to run a business and are doing it, legally and responsibly. Because, there are a lot of hobbyists out there doing it differently. And so just letting people know that this is a professional industry and that there are professionals that are doing it, and helping the newbies learn how to do that, because not all of them know about, I have to have a city business license. I didn't know. Or, what's the difference between LLC and corporations, and just that kind of basic stuff that you learn at the beginning. So just helping people come in at that professional level.
Right. You meant that word professional. That really does, when you have a group of people like that, the standards just get raised for everybody. You start holding yourself to a higher standard, and it just raises that whole thing for not just the businesses there, but the profession as a whole, because you start reminding people, yes, you do need these licenses. Yes, you should get this training. Like that just helps. That helps everybody, and helps the exposure for everybody as a whole.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I was curious, you have this group of the people that are attending and sharing. How do you foster that open communication and sharing of ideas in a healthy space?
Well, I try to think, I always ask people when I make the announcement with the Zoom link of our meeting coming up, if you have anything to add to the agenda, let me know. Usually nobody does. So I have to come up with things, but I try to come up with things that will spur conversation and sharing. Like, for instance, we have our next meeting tomorrow night. And so I sent out the reminder yesterday. And I said, that first of all, we're always starting our meetings with, how is your business doing now versus pre-COVID? So people go around and say, I'm at 30%, I'm at 50. I got some new clients this week, so kind of where are you now? And then we're going to talk about people making changes, such as, is anybody raising your rates? If so, how are you doing it? When are you doing it? Why are you doing it? We started talking about that last time. And then how are you getting new clients? If we all need more people, what are you doing to get out there? And so trying to throw out kind of general questions that will spur conversation that helps everybody is kind of what I try to do with the agenda each time.
Yeah. Well, and these questions, someone's listening to this going, oh my gosh, how would I even begin to run a group meeting? Well, the questions that you just listed off are all questions that I think most business owners have had at least at some point within the past 6 months, maybe past week, verbalizing those and going, hey, this is something that I have on my mind. How is everybody else dealing with that? That's
exactly
right. It's not these big, grandiose, these big, complicated questions or problems that you're bringing up here. This is, what about this? Who's dealing with this problem? Who has these successes? Who's struggling right now? Those are questions that we all have just as human beings in general, and vocalizing those to a group and they'll share back, right? They'll tell you how they're doing.
Yeah. If people don't give me any suggestions for the agenda, or I don't have enough of them, usually I just look at what am I struggling with right now? And everybody else is struggling with that as well. A couple of months ago, we spent a couple meetings talking about SelfCare. Like, what are you doing to keep yourself from going insane with all of this?
Yeah.
And I just think that's helpful to know that everybody else is going through the same stuff.
Yeah, it really does. It's so powerful. Again, we say that a lot. It helps to know that you're not alone, but it is incredibly powerful, not just to ourselves, but to other people as well who are coming, especially new people who are coming in. They have no idea what's going on. And they're doing this in the middle of a global pandemic, right? Good on you. Let's help you. Like, awesome. Let's get this and let's come together and help everybody out. You touched on it a little bit, but does the group look like what you thought it would a year and a half ago when you started this?
I have to say one thing that I wish was different, that I had hoped was different, was participation. We really have our small core group, and I really thought that more people would become involved. And so I'm not sure how to make that happen. And that's definitely something that I am going to be working on. Right now, whenever I'm out walking, and I always talk to other dog walkers, and I say, oh, who do you walk for? And if it's a company who's not part of our group, I give them my card. Hey, you should tell your owner to join our group, just trying to talk it up, because I think that it's one of those things that everybody's so busy. I have too many things to do. I don't have time. But once they start coming, then they realize the benefit of it, So it's how do I get the word, not just the word out there that we exist, because I can do that, but how do I convey the value so that it's worth taking an hour out of your time twice a month, or even once a month, to come. So that's something that I need to figure out. And I need, that I've been struggling with. I really thought that we'd have more members, and we had more active members before COVID. Sure. But I think, people only have so much bandwidth to deal with what's going on in their lives.
And that'll probably be, an ebb and flow over the course of the years. But, that's something that you do. You hope that as more people learn, more people will share, and that inherent benefit of coming together. Because it sounds really simple from the outset of, oh, you mean you get together and talk to each other about your business for an hour? Okay. But you get together and you talk about your business for an hour, like that. It really does. It once you experience something like that, I'm sure that just changes your outlook and your perspective on that entirely, because you do see that benefit of sharing your experiences, being shared back to, being plugged into that community, problem solving together. That is something that has to be experienced, I would imagine, to really fully grasp just how beneficial that is.
Right. And I really thought, too, at the beginning that it would be a lot of small, like solopreneur people like me thinking, well, we're the ones who need the networking with each other the most. But we have a couple of really large groups. The one Chicago Dog Walkers, I think, had like 60 walkers or something. they're really big. And there's another one that's been active. Windy City Paws is another really big one in Chicago. So I never thought that they would find value in it. And yet they've been very active. So don't discount who you think will or won't join, because you never know.
Yeah. Again, one of those like being open and accessible to everybody in your industry. And there's a big table to let everybody in and have access to, and just being open and willing to whoever shows up. And those are the people that need to be there at that time and need to be there to be involved and to share.
And it's great to have a diversity of levels of experience. We have people like the Chicago Dog Walkers owner who's been doing it for like 25 years.
Wow.
And then we have people who started a business last month. So I think it's wonderful to have that breadth of experience. And just the different people offer different kinds of services. And sometimes you hear of something that somebody's doing and you think, I never would have thought to offer that service. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have the diversity.
And thinking about the group that has been developing over the past year and a half, I was wondering, what makes a great networking group? What are some essentials to have in the group?
Well, first of all, I think for any kind of group, you need to have, there needs to be a reliability. Like, this is when we meet, and, because once the dates and times move around and how often and stuff, people will just forget because they don't know when to put it on their calendar. So I think it's important to decide, okay, we're going to meet, on this day every month or whatever. Put it on your calendars, send out the reminder a couple of days before. So it does need, there needs to be somebody, whether the person in charge or somebody that gets delegated that, somebody needs to be in charge of communicating the logistics to everybody in a reliable way. So I think that is critical, just to get people to come. And then there has to be, I think, at least for our group, the way I see it, there needs to be a combination between guiding the discussion and allowing some free-form discussion. So I try to have topics on hand so that we have something to talk about to get the discussion going. But if the discussion goes in a different direction, because that's what people need to talk about, then let it go there. These agenda items are kind of like place savers in case there's crickets to get things going. So I think it's good to have some idea, because you don't want people to come and then everyone to just sit there like, isn't somebody going to say something, or what are we here for? What are we talking about? So I think you have to have some sort of a plan, but then really let the group decide what's important for them that day to talk about.
Knowing that, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the people that are in the room are the people that need to be in the room, and trusting that what's shared is what needs to be shared, and that stuff is going to be benefiting. If someone has that question, if someone has that on the mind, other people do too. And so if you're running that meeting, or if you're kind of in charge of that agenda, just being able to let that go, because the group is for everybody. And if somebody's struggling with something, that can be dealt with then, instead of being stuck to this rigid, like, well, now we have to talk about this, and then we have 15 minutes to talk about this, like just being able to let that go. Right.
And I think when you're running any kind of meeting, but I've especially noticed with all the Zooming I've done in the last 6 months, that you really need to make sure to bring forward the people who maybe are shy. So if everybody's talking about a topic, but you haven't heard from Nancy, as the person hosting the meeting, I think it's important to say, hey, Nancy, what do you think about that? And try to pull people into the meeting who maybe are kind of shy about speaking out. I think that's always important too.
Making sure everybody is involved and being able to contribute, because some people might not feel like they can or should or have value in contributing, but saying no, like everybody can say something here. And if you have something, we need to be quiet and let you share that, because that's important to us. That's what we value, is input from everybody. Right.
Yeah, because there's always going to be those people in the meeting. And I have to admit, sometimes it's me who do all the talking and who need to
Me too.
maybe give someone else a turn. So as the person who's facilitating, it's your job to make sure that people have a chance to speak up, and, that certain people don't monopolize the meeting. And I think that's true of any meeting. But I think there are some things that have become more of a challenge when you're Zooming than in person.
We'll talk about that shift then a little bit of, you were meeting in person. How has it been running those Zoom meetings? Have you stuck to some of the similar talking points, or what's that experience been like for you?
Well, because of COVID and all the challenges, like I said, I was doing some speakers before. We haven't done any speakers because this has been all about supporting each other. So that's been a little different because it's almost been more of a support group with some occasional get you going questions at the beginning. But before it was much more of we have a resource coming in to share some information with everyone, and passing our cards out to each other because it was always somebody new who hadn't been there before. We start every meeting, unless everybody there is an old timer, but we start every meeting going around saying, your name, your business, what services and what area. So that everybody knows who's there. And then sometimes people will be like, oh, I need to talk to you later. I have a client in your area that I need to send to you or whatever. So it's good for everybody to know who's at the table as far as services and geography. Again, with all Zoom meetings, you have to be careful with people taking turns talking. It's a lot more organic in person to have people talking at the same time, but on Zoom, only one person can be heard at a time. So it's hard for people who are shyer to speak up because a lot of times I'll see people ready to speak on Zoom. They open their mouth to speak, but somebody else starts speaking. And then they do that 3 times and you realize that they haven't been able to say anything because someone else is faster. So just kind of paying attention to that, to all the people and who seems to be wanting to say something but maybe needs a little help, which that isn't as much of an issue in person as it is on Zoom.
Sure. Yeah. It's getting back to that, if this networking group is for the benefit of everybody, if you showed up, you have something, to contribute or to learn from. So we as a group are open to hearing, and we value everybody that's here. And so that is made known through clearing space for people so that they can talk if they want to, and making sure that they know that they're valued to be there.
Right. And, usually our meetings are some of the same regulars that always come. And so we may be building on conversations we've been having, but then somebody new comes in who may not be part of that conversation history or whatever. And so I always try to make sure that they have a chance at the end, Nancy, I'm so glad you came to our meeting tonight. I know you're new. Is there anything you'd like to ask the group? Anything we can help you with right now? And then, they might say, I don't know how to get a license. And then everyone gives their advice so that they're feeling like their issue, maybe it's nobody else's issue, but their issue was raised and that they were able to leave that meeting with some actual concrete suggestions for their issue.
Yeah, absolutely. That is really important because again, not necessarily everything is pertinent to everybody, but but they're all there for a reason and valuing that. Thinking to the future, how are you planning? What kind of things do you have in place to keep the group around for years to come?
Well, I would really like to go back to having in-person meetings. I just felt that it was more of a connection, but everybody voted. I did bring it up. That they really liked Zoom, which makes sense because, again, we all have busy schedules. We all live all over the place. And so logistically, it's easier to attend a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So we decided that we're going to stay on Zoom, but have in-person meetings quarterly. So that's something that I'm going to be planning is our first in-person meeting since February. And how to maybe make it special, kind of like we're back, we're back in business, we're back in person. So maybe having some sort of special speaker or something that will bring people in. So hopefully we'll do that. And I really hope to get a boost in participation, whether in person or online or whatever, with our event coming up in October, so that people start to see, again, the value that this group has for them. And that they'll start participating. So that's my big push. What can I do? What, whistles can I have? Bells and whistles can I show that, to bring more people in and to get more people participating? That's what I'm really going to be working on going forward.
Sure. Yeah. No, there's a lot of exciting things coming up. I hope by now listeners have gotten it in their head that having a networking group is really important, and it is extremely valuable, and it helps not just you but everybody in your area, and being open to community over competition. But I'm curious, what are some things that we can do today to start putting together a group in our area if we don't already have one?
Well, there are tons of pet care providers, I'm sure, in every city. Here in Chicago, I just met a guy walking a dog yesterday, and I asked him the name of his business. I'd never heard of it before, and yet it seems to be big. So there are so many groups. So I would say, the first thing is to let people know that you're doing this. And we often don't know who all the other people are, all the businesses are. So, going into the pet shop and looking on the bulletin board, the vet's office usually has that area where everybody puts out their cards. And hopefully you're already belonging to some online communities, Facebook groups, or Nextdoor is great for hyper-local stuff. If they have Nextdoor where you live. Those are places where you can start talking about it, mentioning that you're doing this group. I actually reached out to somebody who was offering up services on Nextdoor and said, hey, you should join our networking group. And she's like, oh my God, I'd love to. So, just letting people know that you're there. And those are some places where maybe you can find people. And then just when you're out walking, dogs, if you're a dog walker, I meet dog walkers all the time and try to let them know that, hey, we're here to help. Again, not competition, but just to help each other out, So that's what I would suggest. And just do it, Right. Don't be scared. You are going to benefit so much yourself from starting this group. I have benefited so much myself. So I'm so glad I did it.
It just starts with this simple communicating to others that there's recognizing that need, and just start talking to people, reaching out to them around you, because they're there, right? You may, as you just said, there was a dog walker. They're like, I didn't even know you were around. That's awesome. Let's get connected. Let's grow. Let's learn from each other. Just starting at that point is so huge and so powerful, and it really does start changing the area, the business network that you're in whenever someone starts opening up and looking for more community.
Right. And it just really spreads that thought that we're all here to help each other. We're all here to collaborate. Because a lot of times people do get into that competitive mindset. And, it's okay that you do the same thing that somebody else does. You might do it differently, So let's all help each other out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Alicia, this has been so wonderful. I am really appreciative of you sharing your experience through this and encouraging us all to either get involved or start something in our area if we don't already have one. If people have more questions about running and operating a group and some of those more experiences that you have, how can they best get connected with you?
Well, they can always email me at Alicia, ALICIA, at pitterpatterparenting.com, or check out Pitter Patter Parenting on Facebook, and you can reach me that way as well.
Awesome. I'll have links to those and some of the other things we've talked about in the show notes so people can click right on those and get connected. Again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Not a problem. Thank you and your wife so much for this wonderful podcast.
The possibilities for your group is endless. Who you have invited, how you hold your meetings, how it's structured and organized is totally up to you and the needs of the pet care community where you are. I hope that by listening to Alicia's story that you're encouraged to start something or to get more engaged with a group if you have one already existing in your area, to really make it something that's working for not just you, but for everybody. I hope that as we move into 2021, that we continue to strengthen these relationships, build these support networks, and build this community, not just with our clients and with our surrounding businesses, but with our pet care businesses in the area that we live. So it's in that spirit that I want to remind you of the Thanksgiving Hour that Megan and I are hosting on Thanksgiving Day, September 26th, between the hours of 1 p.m. Central and 2 p.m. Central. It's just an hour to come together, share how this year has been, and share what we've been thankful for and what we're looking forward to in the year to come. Check out the show notes for that Zoom link, and we do hope to see you there. We want to thank our sponsor, Time to Pet, for making this week's show possible. Head on over to timetopet.com/confessional to get that discount. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a wonderful community that has come together, that is supporting each other, and that is cheering one another on. You really are the spirit that this industry needs and the support that so many are desperately looking for. Again, thank you for listening this week, and we'll be back again soon.